there, everyone. Welcome back to Turnaround Coach, your place where you can get a little tidbit of advice each week on managing your transformation in your organization. Now, I'm Sherry, and I know I've been coming to you each week right here, and I appreciate each and every one of you. I really want to start with that because without you following and listening to this each week, then this information wouldn't get out to anyone. So do me a favor, if you are enjoying what you are hearing each week, can you make sure, number one, to subscribe, and number two, pass this information along to someone that might need it. I specialize in doing turnarounds with organizations that might be worried about failing or closing their doors, but I also work with startups, and I also work with different small businesses and schools that might want to just scale to the next level. Maybe you're just being stagnant for a while and you want to get to that next spot in your organization. I specialize in working on those types of things as well. And with my proven processes, you can't fail, I promise. And we have a guarantee about that. So having said that, I would really appreciate it if you would just share this out to one person. If everyone shares to one person and they share to one, pretty soon we can multiply this show by so many people and get this information out. All right, let's get started with this week. We're on week number 21 with Turnaround Coach, and I have been enjoying this so much because it gives me an opportunity to take little pieces of information that I have found valuable when I did my transformations at the different schools that I led. And even when I talk to people and mentor people, sorry, there was a pop-up there that was catching my attention, mentored people that were doing the same thing. It's really important that, and we've talked about this before, that you really make sure your people are on board. When we're talking about an organization that's having difficulties, whether you've become very level, you're just not meeting your goals, you're not sure where to go, or you're starting to see a decline in whatever is happening, it's one of three things going on. Leadership, which I think is super important. You as the owner, the CEO, the leader, the whatever you call yourself, you are an integral part of this organization. With you set the tone for everything. You set all of the expectations, and you are out there empowering your people to do the work. So clearly, leadership is a big part of a transformation. The second piece that I think is so important as well is the systems and processes and procedures that you have. Sometimes we just don't have them, which I've gone into schools like that. Sometimes we have them, but they're outdated. That happened specifically for me after the pandemic. We had some great things going on, but once the pandemic hit, I think we all could agree that most of the things any of us were doing were no longer valid, right? And now, again, we're starting to get to a place where we're coming back together and being a little more people-oriented rather than necessarily just virtual. So systems are going to change a lot. And I think that's important to realize, understand, and make sure that you are always moving and grooving with that kind of change. But then I think one that is actually just as important, and I really focus on, is climate and culture. Because your people are going to make or break you, whether you want to believe that or not. Now, I'm a solopreneur. So who are my people right now? My people are my followers, my network, my clients, my referral team, the people that are going to be there to help boost me forward. I'm working on a big project right now that has people working with me, 2 big projects, and those are my people, right? I need to make sure that they're getting taken care of, that I'm being very transparent with information. I'm sitting here thinking this morning as I'm writing this week's to-do list, thinking I got to get some information out to one of these groups quick because they need to know what's happening. I need to be clear and concise about that. So your people might not necessarily be your employees, but they could be. but they're also needing to be all of the people, all of the stakeholders within the organization. So that's sometimes one where we do have to step back and we have to think about who those people are. And then we need to think about who we are as an organization, right? Our brand, so to speak, our culture. How do we do things here? This is our system for onboarding a client or those types of things. So you can see that all of these three areas really kind of intertwine together. And I've said this before, and I'll say it over and over again. Most times there isn't one specific area that needs to be reviewed when going in and working with these organizations. It's usually a combination, and that's what makes it fun and the problem solving piece with it. But it really is something that is so dynamic. And I think about it like a car, right? And I've used this analogy with my teachers before. You're driving along in your car and you need to get an oil change, right? And you don't do it. What's going to happen? Eventually, that small little thing, an oil change, going in, having your service done for $30, maybe, I don't know, my oil changes are included with my car, but, or my 1 hour drive to the dealership to get my car serviced and my 1 hour drive back, whatever it is that you do. If you don't do that and your oil runs dry, your engine's going to die. And then your car is not going to run. And I think about that when you think about an organization, all of those little simple pieces coming together to make the organization run as smoothly as possible. But if one of those things starts to go wrong, it's going to affect something else, which will affect something else, which will affect something else. And then eventually, if they're not addressed, if they're not taken care of and serviced like they're supposed to, then everything's going to fall apart. And then that's when you're going to be in trouble. So as you listen to these episodes each week, I want you to think about that, because even if you're an organization right now that your goals are here, you're here and you're just moving along, you're not losing money, right? But you might not be meeting those goals. Being comfortable in this state, I can promise you there's something that's going to need to be adjusted soon, because this is never a good thing, right? We never start our organizations just to be average. We never go in as the leader just to say, okay, I'm the okayest leader. We're going to have the okayest, whatever your system is, school, business, whatever it is in the world, right? So having said that, and knowing that those three components are very important to transforming an organization, I want to talk this week about successes and how do you get your people on board, especially those naysayers. So when I came into my second school, I replaced somebody, each time I replaced somebody that had basically let the systems fall apart, let the problems, that level, right? They were comfortable, let things start to fall off. And then there was a decline. But when I went into the second organization, the second school, I was getting some resistance. There were people on board with me, I would say about half the staff. It was a little different where I was in a different state where they have union, and teacher union is pretty strong in some of the states, and Iowa is one of those states, a very, very strong teacher union. And so there are rules and regulations about what you can change and what you can put into place when you come in as the leader. And the interesting thing is the union is not there for the principal. The union is there for the teachers. The principals don't get a union. We don't get that kind of support up there, which makes that job even more challenging, especially when you're trying to make change. So coming into it, I knew there were going to be these resistors, and I knew that some of these resistors were very involved in the teacher union. And so I had to really do my homework. I had to, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, last week or the week before, where I had to really know who my people were and get to know who the people were. I had to know which people were those informal leaders. I needed to know which people were going to get on board the bus or which ones I was going to have to either work on or kind of help them see their way off the bus, right? And getting off the bus there in particular was a different process than I had ever done before. And that was not my goal that first year coming in, for sure. I didn't want to just go in and clean house. That's just not my way of doing things. I wanted to give everyone the benefit of the doubt and believe that they really wanted to do what was best for the organization, but that maybe they just didn't know how, or maybe they had gotten into these patterns of doing things and they needed to have some help getting out of those habits. So one of the things that really sticks out to me is this piece that's so crucial with your turnaround or your transformation, and that is you need to provide some speedy successes to get those naysayers on board. You need to silence those critics as quickly as you can. And the only way to do that is to start seeing success fast. Now, I always say, and always did, and when I work with clients now, we have to target the big things first, right? If something can solve a big problem quickly, that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to think about the other smaller details, but we're going to think about them a little bit farther down the line. So for example, that school in particular, I needed to go in and I needed to look at two big things. I needed to figure out some kind of solution for the amount of students that were being referred to special education services. And I needed to figure out a solution for student discipline. Those were the two big things that were causing the most turmoil. And I knew I wasn't going to fix it overnight, but I knew that I could get some speedy success by doing some things with systems, processes, and procedures, along with really building a more positive climate and culture in the building that could help me get those successes as quickly as possible. Now, doing that, did I get everybody on board? No. There were still some people. I was there 2 years, not because of the school, but because living there was not the place for me. I had some other things going on and I needed to come back to Houston. However, by the time I left, I can definitely say I went from about 50% of the staff being on board with me and believing in what I could do to about 78 to 80%. Not 100%, but I know if I would have stayed another year or two, I think I could have been very close. You're never going to be at 100% when you're leading because you're never going to make everybody happy, right? If you are, you're not doing your job. But I think I could have gotten a little bit closer to 90% within the next year or two because there were systems now in place that were working, if that makes sense. So this week's lesson, I really want you to think about that. I want you to think about who your people are, who your critics are. And we've, as I said, spoken about this before, knowing your people and knowing which ones are going to be on your team, which ones are the formal and informal leaders. So you really have to get to know your people and know who those critics are going to be. No matter what you do, they're going to find something wrong. Now, critics are not necessarily the people that question what you do. Critics are the ones that are naysayers. They don't believe in your mission. They don't believe in your processes and procedures. And ultimately, they are the ones that stir the pot. And they are the ones that are going to affect that climate and culture in a negative way. And once you know who those critics are, then you need to really make sure that discreetly, you are targeting those people with those speedy successes. Of course, you're going to want to communicate your successes and small wins, specifically small wins, when making a transformation like this, because it's going to motivate everyone. So you definitely want to keep doing that with everyone in your organization. But when you have conversations with those critics, you can keep spiraling back to, well, yes, but we changed this process and look what it's done for you. Let's look at the data on this. And if you're very objective with what you're using as your milestones, so to speak, or pillars of success, then you will eventually get many, if not most, of those critics on board with you. All right, so for more information on how we might do that more specifically, I tailor my programs to everybody's needs. So if that's a specific area that you need help with, and maybe you don't need everything, reach out to me and let's see how we can get together, get a call. I always like to do that first call for free. I can get you some thoughts and some steps on how you can start moving in the right direction. But most importantly, again, we want you to be as successful as you dream to be, that your organization is thriving and striving for excellence, not just complacent with being average. So each week I try to bring you a little tidbit that you can use in during your journey. And like I said earlier, if you wouldn't mind sharing this out with anyone that could benefit from this information, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'm Sherry, your turnaround coach, and I will see you next week right back here where you can get all of that great information for free. Have a great week, y'all.